Hey everyone, it's Beth, Adaptive Knitter. I spent some time yesterday evening playing with my new adaptive knitting tool for one-handed knitting purposes. And it was really, really fun to play with. I started out completely backwards. I didn't take the time to wait for the instructions. I looked at the schematic, I put it together, and I cast it on like immediately. I was so excited. And I started out doing it completely backwards, and it was kind of slow going. But then after a little bit of time, Emily sent over some more instructions, and I was able to see how to do it for my left hand. Instead of the way it comes is kind of set up for your right hand. So I just had to do some mental gymnastics, figure out exactly what that felt like and looked like for me. And as soon as I did that, after I got like 3 stitches in, I was like, oh, this is so much simpler than the way I was doing it. So I have, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 6 rows cast on that I did all using just one hand last night, the first 2 backwards, and then I figured it out and continued on a couple times doing it the proper way. So I thought that I would give you a little peek into what I'm doing and how it looks to knit one-handed using your left hand. Okay, I think we can see very pretty clearly here what I've got going on. This is the machine itself. I've got my yarn set up in a bowl right here. This is what I've already got on the needle. You can kind of see where I went from backwards to forward right around here. But then it's pretty dang even after that point in this swatch. I cast on a good number of stitches just so that it could really see what I was doing. Here's the other needle. Now they sent me these needles. You can see the end is kind of clipped off. That makes it easier and quicker to put it in the slot where it goes. And then there is this part right here. Now this is really cool. It's padded on both sides. It's got these little pegs right here, and this fits into the bottom of this device so that you can hold it on your lap instead of putting it on a tabletop like I'm doing here. So that's an option, and I tried it both ways last night. It was actually quite comfortable to use on my lap, but for these purposes I'm going to do it here on the tabletop. So for left-handed knitting, which is what I'm going to demonstrate, the working yarn goes on the right, and you slide it into this little clamp right here, just like this, and then you tighten up the clamp so it's all in one place. So I'm just going to get started. I've tried a number of different ways to do this, and I have found that starting with the tensioning the way that I usually do it, but kind of wrapping it around one finger less so that I have, or my ring finger, my middle finger, it gives me a little bit more control with my pointer finger. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, and now I put this in my hand and I just get going. So this first stitch is always the hardest for me, so bear with. I want to be true to this and just do it with one hand. So getting it in this first stitch is hard. After that, it's pretty simple. All right, I'm in. Once it's in, you can rest the needle in this V-shaped holder on this side. Now, I don't normally let go. I just did that to show you. All right, wrap the yarn as you would to knit. And then I have been kind of holding it here while I come through and pop it off the needle. And can you see that? It just did this right stitch. Now here we go. I'm in already. You can see how quickly you can get into a groove here once you get that initial stitch started. All right, so I'm going to set this down for a second, move my yarn up a little bit closer, grab my tension. All right, in through the front to the back as if to knit. Then I rest it in this V, wrap, slide off, just like you would if you were holding that other needle in your right hand. Oops, don't split the yarn. There we go. I hope you can see this with the contrast not being very good. I will do another one of these with a different yarn that is a little bit easier to see on these green needles. I love a good superwash yarn for learning new techniques. It's nice and grabby. This one is extremely soft. So it's nice to work with, but it's so grabby. If you make a mistake, it's easy to get your needle back in. Superwash yarns can be kind of slippery. So I suggest that if you're trying something new and you're swatching, to try that technique, to use a non-superwash wool yarn to help you along your way. And that's really it, you guys. I mean, once you get it set up and you do a couple rows, it's really intuitive. I could knit an entire project like this, no problem. It's easy on my shoulder. I'm not bending over this table at all to do this. I'm just making it go. Sometimes this V gets a little loose, and I found if you adjust it like left or right, this way or that way, it gives it a little bit more tension right here, so it holds it a little sturdier. So sometimes I find myself doing that. But too tight means you can't get it out properly. So you got to find the right balance for you. And there we go. I mean, I'm cruising right along here. This is not slow going. This is a pretty decent pace that I've got. And what you see is what I've done. I've not done any more than this little tiny swatch here that you see. So yeah, the learning curve is pretty, it's not very steep at all if you already understand the concept of knitting. So there we go. I'm really excited to keep going and keep testing it and answering all of Emily's questions and Joy's questions about how it's going along. And I will check back in a couple days with hopefully with some little project that I've been working on. Thanks, everybody.